Hello, everyone, and welcome to the NARSA weekly update for the week commencing Monday, the 8th of November 2021. It's Gary here, and man oh man, I can tell you that I am absolutely thrilled that last week's pod is behind me and I can start to pick up the pieces a little bit and get this NARSA show well and truly back on the road. Oof, that was absolutely brutal. I wasn't really 100% sure how it would go, and it ended up just being an awful experience, and apologies for the quality of the broadcast last week. It's just one of those things. And then after that, I had to go and play football at 9:30pm. Yep, 9:30pm on a Monday night after the recording, and thankfully the game was a wee bit less dramatic than the pod itself turned out to be. So looking at footage online from the funeral procession was just amazing to see the continued outpouring of respect and support from the fans of Sir Walter, and I'm sure the family wholly appreciated the sense of community and support from the well-wishers. I have to admit though, I'm not 100% sure I'd like to be the hearse driver in extreme situations like that, with all the scarves and other bits and pieces being thrown onto the bonnet of the car as a way of showing respect. It had to have been tough to actually see at times, and there's a guy walking right in front of the hearse as well. He must have been a wee bit nervous that he was going to maybe get run over. And I'm sure the driver, he or she, doesn't really want to appear disrespectful and put on the window wipers to brush them off either, and the perils of the job, I guess you could say. But now that we all have Walter's memorial service to look forward to on the 19th, and at the time of recording I don't have any specific details on the timing or the service programme, and I'm sure we'll all hear about that fairly quickly here, I'm hoping, and then see where we go from there in terms of the time and stuff like that. I expect it will be a bit of an early one for us here in North America, which will give us the chance to pay our respects prior to the workday commencing, if that's what you're planning to do. I know the family really want the service to be a joyous occasion. They certainly wanted that from the funeral itself as well, and to focus more on his achievements and celebrating what he meant to so many, and then I'm sure that's the way that it'll work out, and I'm actually really looking forward to seeing that. I'm sure it's going to be a great programme, but hopefully we'll find out a wee bit more prior to the event. Maybe by next week's pod we'll have a wee bit of a chance to talk about what that looks like in terms of timing and how to access it and that sort of thing. So on to the games segment for this week. As you know, we had two games this past week, starting with the away tie in Copenhagen against Brøndby in the Europa League Game 4, and last week I described it as a must-win and that it would be very difficult to qualify in second place from the group if we didn't win it, and of course we didn't win it, coming away with the 1-1 draw. But with Lyon continuing to dominate the group with another comfortable victory against the Prague Racist Society, qualification is now literally fully within our grasp, and if we manage to beat Prague by 2 clear goals in the game at Ibrox on the 25th of this month, then we will be in good shape, because it doesn't matter on the last game. And I'm not quite sure I fully grasped that prior to the game on Thursday. I really thought that the win would have been the most important part of that, but the manager and the players interviewed after the match were very pleased to have it in our own hands. Now, all that said, I'm not saying for a second that a 2-goal victory is absolutely assured against Sparta, especially with our newfound philosophy of giving away the first goal in every single game that we play. But we know what we need to do, and not to take it down to the last game in France. So that's a bonus of some sorts for us. But onto the actual game itself, I thought we were very, very flat again in the first half, and then we gifted Brøndby a 1-goal advantage right on half time with just a bizarre own goal. Quite what Leon Balogun was thinking with that one is beyond me, but I mean, it's another one of these, they don't have a shot on target and then they go into the break 1-0 up, and they must have felt like they were winning the lottery at that particular point. And then we made some key substitutions in the second half, and they did pay off with a brilliantly worked equaliser from Yanis Hadji. And at that point, I honestly thought there was only going to be one winner, but unfortunately, once again for us, we just couldn't carve out that gilt-edged chance to get ourselves the victory that I think our play overall deserved. The chances weren't, a couple of decent saves by the goalie, but it wasn't as if we were peppering the goal right, left and centre. It was all just a bit huff and puff and poking and prodding at their goal without really creating the chances we would have surely taken if they'd have come our way. So there you have it, 1-1 against a very, very average Brøndby side, similar to the draws against Motherwell and Hearts. That's the way I felt after the game, and I can't really say I enjoyed the game too much afterwards. I was like, well, that's time I'll never really get back in my life, as you just had that feeling that the second goal just wasn't coming, that the longer time was ticking on. So what does it mean? As I mentioned earlier, it's essentially down to us now and Sparta racists for second place. Mathematically, as we sit here right now, Brøndby are still in the mix and potentially could, in theory, mathematically finish in second, but you'd imagine Lyon will shut them down once and for all in Game 5, and we just need to better the 1-0 result that Sparta won by against us earlier in the group stage to take the second slot on a better head-to-head record against them. Goal difference in the regular way we calculate it in normal domestic league play isn't the first thing that's considered in this competition. It's the head-to-head record between the teams if you end up tied. So if you look at the table right now, we have the same 4 points as them, but we're 2 goals better off, but they hold second spot right now because they've already beat us. So we win by 2 more goals against them, and it doesn't matter what happens in the last game, which is kind of good, because the way this team isn't dominating like we did last year, I have no idea what the next match will bring, and we only have the one game between now and then, and that's the semi-final against Hibs at Hampden on the 21st. So it's all come down to the wire, getting a bit exciting, and a lot of our fans will also have come home with a very sore head, and some of it wasn't the hangover kicking in, it was just the Copenhagen police deciding to batter us for standing around in a crowd waiting for the Brøndby gates to get sorted out. Hopefully the club are doing something about that, because that sort of stuff is just not on and downright dangerous. It's pathetic to see that sort of stuff in this day and age. You think we'd all be a bit better than that these days. Anywho, so yeah, Europa League is still within our grasp. Steven Gerrard said after it, we haven't hit the heights, and we know that we haven't hit the heights in that particular competition yet. So what better time to do that against a team that we don't have a lot of love for in the game here in a couple of weeks, and really just put them to the sword and give ourselves a chance to just go and enjoy the game in France and see where that takes us. Our second game was yesterday morning's 4-2 victory at home against bottom club Ross County. I mentioned the bottom club part because typically we end up struggling against the bottom clubs for some reason, but overall it was a pretty comfortable victory after our obligatory 1-goal slow start was gifted out. We took a grip of the game with goals from Joe Aribo, absolutely brilliant strike from Ryan Kent to take us into the break 2-1 ahead, and then we extended the lead further with another brilliant first goal for Rangers from Juninho Bacuna, followed up on the hour mark with an OG from one of the Ross County defenders. And I had 6 in my head. I honestly thought we'd push on and really put them to the sword, but didn't work out that way, and we ended the game kind of the way we started it, by gifting them a soft goal and by just not doing the basics of defending. So something for Steven Gerrard and the coaching staff to look at over the international break. 4-2 is where it finished, and we maintained our 4-point lead going into yet another dreaded international break. And I did love Steven Gerrard's interview after the match yesterday when he was asked about players turning their attentions to international football, and he cut Nick Thompson off and said, a version of it's all about Rangers for me. The players have been told to look after themselves and come back here ready for a massive semi-final later in the month, and I just love that type of attitude from the manager, because it really is all about the Rangers. So with all of that said, we have no Rangers games to look forward to this weekend coming, and the first game we have is the Premier Sports Cup, or the League Cup semi-final against Hibs on the 21st of this month. And one main benefit of the international break is it gives us a wee opportunity to pause and reflect on where we're at for the season thus far. And right now, as I mentioned earlier, we're 4 points clear at the top of the league on 30 points after 13 games, having won 9, drawn 3 and lost 1. We've scored 29 goals and conceded 13, giving us a goal difference of 16. And now 13 goals lost in 13 games, and last year we lost 13 goals in 38 games. So it gives you an idea of the comparison and contrast between how well we defended last year and how we have not managed to hit the same heights this year. We're in the semi-finals of the League Cup against Hibs, as I mentioned, and we are down to the wire in the group stages of the Europa League. So when you summarise it at the overall season level, it isn't exactly terrible, especially when you consider that we have stuttered a lot more this season than we all expected, certainly, as much as I expected anyway. And every single game is huge for us. I know that's a little bit of a cliche, but in terms of shaping our season, the next two truly are. We want to get to the League Cup final against St Johnstone on the 19th of December, and we really want to qualify from the group stages again and look forward to some quality European football in the new year. The next two matches gives us the opportunity to do just that. And like I said, what feels like just a couple of weeks ago, actually, we just need all of our players to come back fit and ready after the international break to play these games. Having Ryan Kent back, looking very, very sharp, and finally at long last to see Ryan Jack back on the field gives us some great options. Again, as these are two, for me, automatic first choice players for us for when they're fit. So it's all looking good for us. Obviously the big blip was the Champions League exit at the last stage there, but that's just the way that went. And just a wee tidbit about that, I normally don't do this, but for whatever reason this year I wanted to keep an eye on Malmo's progress since they beat us in the playoff round of the Champions League qualification. And after 4 games, if you haven't checked it out, after 4 games they've lost 4 games, they've scored 0 goals and they've conceded 12. So I kind of flip and flop a little bit about whether I'd have wanted Rangers to progress to the group and then just get our horses handed to us game after game, but in the knowledge that we have £20 million in the bank, or have the scrap fest that we found ourselves in the Europa League and giving ourselves an opportunity to get beyond that as well. I'm not sure where I'm at right now, but I do know that we wouldn't be happy if that's where things stood after 4 games for us. If we had qualified, if we were in the exact same position as Malmo right now, we would have probably taken that opportunity to get a bit down about it. So maybe I'm erring on the side of where we're at right now is where we should be, and it's not exactly a bad place to be. On to RTV, we had a wee bit of a login challenge for yesterday's game for the boys and girls down at Milton, but other than that, I didn't hear of any or many issues. I watched the games at home because we still can't meet at the club due to the restrictions here in Calgary, and I watch it through the internet through Leo's Xbox on the TV, and the last 2 games I've been periodically kicked out at least twice per half. So yesterday, for example, I missed Ryan Kent's worldly goal, as an example, because it just cut off right before it, and then by the time I got it back on, everybody's celebrating. I've asked a few folks in my network, and it appears to be kind of isolated to me and my setup here, which is a bit frustrating. Actually, it's really doing my head in, to be really honest. So we'll figure out that as we go forward. Maybe I need to just do a hard restart before the games or something like that. Just a wee reminder that we do still have RTV vouchers available for NARSA club members if you need them. And the process is a wee bit different than it was last year. We get the vouchers on a month-to-month basis, which means that if they're not activated within that calendar month, they will expire, and then we have to go back to RTV to get some new ones. We had that very challenge this last week. So one thing I would ask is that if you request a voucher and receive a voucher, redeem it right away. You don't need to wait until game day to redeem it. It can be done on any device at any time, and wait until game day gives us a wee bit of a it gives us absolutely no notice to be able to help and support things in real time. So just a wee word of caution on that. And what we're going to try and do in this, in fact, actually no, we're not going to try and do it, we are going to do it in this international break, is get the RTV survey finalised once and for all. And I'll spend some time with Alan McWatt on that one here shortly, and we'll be in touch with all the clubs. I know that Alec Grant has been putting out some email reminders for membership payments and the like, so we're going to try and tie all that sort of stuff together and make sure that everybody knows what the landscape looks like for them and their club as the season progresses. For shout outs to this week, and firstly, speaking of Alec Grant, a very happy belated birthday to NARSA's very own treasurer Alec, who celebrated his birthday in style in Mexico last week. I believe his birthday was on Saturday, I think. Don't quote me on that. Apologies if that's not the case, Alec. and he had a rip-roaring time in Puerto Vallarta down in Mexico and arrived back in the very early hours of Sunday morning and still made the game with the Big Apple Bears there. So what a trooper he is despite his advancing years. And the second one is a reminder, as I've mentioned the last couple of weeks now, for all Calgary and area Bears to come and join us at our British New Year party on Friday, December the 31st at the Palomino Smokehouse, downtown Calgary. It's going to be a great time, and it'll be great to get together and see out 2021 and look forward to 2022. For our convention update for this week, the update is very, very similar to last week, and the caveat to that is it's sometimes just kind of incredible how the weeks fly by on us. I'll go over it again though, just in case you didn't happen to listen. Last week, we have continued our progress with the Las Vegas Loyal organising committee for their excursions that they're going to be doing. There's going to be a booze cruise on the Thursday they're organising, and then a Hoover Dam tour day on the Friday, and we have the website shell created, and I'm hopeful that we will be able to share the details on that this week via our regular communications channels. And I know that I have said that for the last couple of shows, but we are genuinely just essentially ready to click a button and get going on that. And we're also just about ready to announce the sales of the football and the golf. Probably the golf will be a wee bit before the football. I know we've got some logistic things that we're trying to organise on the football side, so I'm not 100% sure if they'll be announced this week, but we're very, very close on all fronts, and we'll definitely be announcing the excursions later in the week for sure. For the rest, we'll just see where we're at. On the travel front, again, the same as last week. We are ready just to press the button and get this launched, and we have a dedicated site that you'll be able to access from the NARSA site, and there are special complimentary gifts for anyone that is booking their Vegas trips through the Holiday and Flight Centre. And it did take us a while. We got there, thanks to Rosie for being so patient and letting us go over this last wee hump of the last week or two, and we will go through and get this organised, and then you'll be able to see what type and style of offerings are out there if you haven't booked your travel already, and also express an interest for the travel to the 2023 convention in Toronto. So take a look out for that as well, and we'll get, as I say, all these out on our regular communications channels to get going. And we also have a proposed contract under review right now for NARSA 2023, and Billy Ferguson, Brian Campbell and myself have a review session on that tomorrow evening. We'll see how it all shakes out and see if this is the one that we want to go with. Historically, in my experience anyway, I've signed the contracts for the convention around about the December time frame, so we're maybe a few weeks ahead of the target on that, which isn't a bad thing at all. And as I mentioned before, getting to the spot of having the hotel confirmed is always a major milestone for us, and one that I'm very much looking forward to as we continue planning with everyone there at Toronto Midtown. Just another regular plug for our frequently asked questions document on the convention. I'll continue to say this until convention time. It's on the website. Any questions you have, go take a peek and you'll get what you need from there. On to our communication section for this week. Some things I did want to mention. Starting with, you'll have seen already that the club published their annual report and accounts, and some key highlights from there where we posted losses for the year ending June 2021 at £23.5 million, which increased almost £16 million from the same time in 2020. Revenue was down almost £12 million. Gate receipts and hospitality income down by almost $17.5 million. Retail income of $4.2 million from the Castor deal, of course. Sponsorship and advertising income of just less than £5 million. Season ticket income of £17 million, and European income of just over £11 million. With data like this, you can always look at things differently from different angles, and on one hand you could get all worried and hysterical at the huge losses, or you could dig a wee bit deeper and get the full story. From a very, very high level, you can see that the £17.5 million losses for gate receipts and hospitality is a huge part of the losses that we incurred. Without that, the losses are less than £6 million. And we also invested over £10 million in the playing squad with Yanis Hadji, Kamar Roof and Cedric Itten all coming in, and we didn't sell any of our high value talent yet or to date. So you sell a valuable asset, pocket some of the monies, reinvest a portion back in for a replacement, and you're basically operating at break even at worst. I'm no accountant, not even close at all, but to me this all looks as healthy as it can look when you consider that we are on the other side of the pandemic restrictions, and we will be able to recoup some of those significant losses in the next year and beyond, I hope. And at the same time, the club also announced the AGM, which is going to be held on the 30th of November at the Clyde Auditorium, 10:30 a.m. UK time. So if you're a shareholder, you will have received this formal notice and instructions on how to vote and the like. And interestingly, there's a freeze in trading or transferring shares for the month prior to the AGM. I'm not sure why I think that part is so interesting, but I'm kind of new to this whole thing, so I just wasn't aware of such a process. So it's kind of cool to be involved in it now. And there's also a really good article based on an interview with Stuart Robertson that was on RTV. Interestingly, I couldn't find it on the RTV website and when I was searching for it, because I wanted to actually hear the full thing, but I guess I'm maybe just looking in the wrong place. Maybe that's a bit of a user error. And the article is explaining the club's involvement in the Women in Football campaign. And what it says, what Stuart says, is I think it is something that is really important. From the club's perspective, we have our Everyone Anyone campaign, and gender is a key part of that. It shouldn't really matter what your gender is. What we want are the best people for each position at the club. We have seen the growth of women's football, but this is much more than women's football. This is about having women through every department in the club, including the men's football department. It is something that we genuinely believe in, and it's not something that is just PR. It is something we believe in, and we are very, very pleased that we can support the campaign. So as you can see, it's a key part of our ongoing Everyone Anyone strategy, which is why the club is pledging, is primarily, I imagine, why the club is pledging support for this particular campaign. And I suspect at some point in the future, the utopia is that we don't need to talk about the need to support campaigns for certain groups of demographics, to become more involved or be more represented. It'll just be a way of life at some point in the future. And if this helps the club get closer to that, then I'm all for it. And on that very topic of the Everyone Anyone campaign, I was actually out for a run on the weekend, and things just pop into my head when I'm out, and usually by the time I'm finished I kind of forget them, but this one I didn't, and I was just starting to think a little bit about the Everyone Anyone campaign, and I made an inquiry to the club about what training and support they've developed or provide access to for people to kind of go through and understand what the Everyone Anyone campaign means. If you have people who have been found to have been in breach of the Everyone Anyone campaign rules and guidelines, there is talk of what training is available and they have to go through the course. So I wanted to find out what that was. So I'm just interested to see how it all works in the background, and I appreciate some of it might be sensitive and situation dependent, but if there's anything I can find out about that and share with you, I'll definitely do that in a future pod, because it's something that I now have in my mind, and I won't kind of rest until I get an answer on that. I'd just like to know what sort of programme is in place for the people who would be looking to get, if I could say in inverted commas, rehabilitated to thinking along the same lines as the Everyone Anyone strategy wants us to. The club also announced the launch of unique non-fungible tokens in an article on the site, which says Rangers are today delighted to announce a unique NFT Champions collection to commemorate the club's undefeated 2020-21 season. The 2020-21 campaign was a momentous highlight in the long and exalted history of Rangers. It marks the first Premiership title in a decade, a feat we accomplished in phenomenal style, going undefeated in the league. To mark this achievement and to preserve its legacy in the annals of football history, we're delighted to announce the launch of a commemorative series of NFTs. We'll be launching a series of 1,111 unique and beautifully crafted NFTs featuring 4 tiers of rarity. And on the website, there's a list of what's available and in what quantity. And I'll put the link to the article there in the blurb for tonight's pod. I would encourage you to go check it out and see what the future is holding for collecting this one-of-a-kind digital memorabilia from our great club. Now, One thing about the URL, the website address that I'm going to post on the blurb is that it ends pretty funny. Now, I know I'm being a wee bit immature and thinking this sort of stuff is funny, but I just can't help it. I think it's funny. So when you look at the website address, scan your eye across to the right-hand side and tell me that you don't think it's kind of funny. These things are auto-generated by the internet, I think, and the letters that end up at the end just make me laugh. That's my type and style of sense of humour. Almost finally on the comms front for this week, Rangers announced that there is still time to get involved in the Champions Wall. You might remember it was probably a couple of months ago that I was talking about this, and they said earlier this year Rangers were delighted to announce the Rangers Champions Wall, a landmark installation next to Ibrox Stadium that will allow supporters to share their memories and photographs in a unique photo mosaic that will proudly display a selection of our most famous legends and moments, and you can still be part of it. The centre of the museum will capture Steven Gerrard lifting the trophy for our historic and coveted 55th league title, and he will be joined by 8 other champions from our glorious history, such as greatest ever Ranger John Greig and our 9-in-a-row captain Richard Gough. So if you were interested before but never quite got around to doing it, it's not too late, and you can check out the article and get going on that. Again, I'll put the link to that article, which is the link for that isn't nearly as funny as the one for the NFTs, and you can go take a peek. And just before Walter's passing, a couple of shows ago, I had a wee bit of a rant at the St Mirren chairman's stupidity in taking to social media, wishing all sorts of ill on us as a club and our fan base and supporters, at least one of which came after he joined the St Mirren board not so long ago. What an absolute clown of a guy. I hope he gets severely censured for this, and I look forward to seeing what happens at his hearing now that he has formally been charged by the SFA. The hearing is going to take place on the 2nd of December, and the chairman, rightly or wrongly, are held to a higher standard in their capacity and their role, and this is a real opportunity for the football authorities to set an example on this sort of behaviour, and I really look forward to seeing how it works out. The pessimistic side of my nature says nothing will materially change, but you just never know. And maybe censuring someone from St Mirren would be a wee bit more palatable than censuring someone from another club in the East End of Glasgow, as an example. And finally, I wanted to provide a wee bit of an update on our Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast annual subscription competition. I'd mentioned before that we seem to be a wee bit stuck on the question, and I think we're beyond that. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I'm delighted to say that I think we are beyond that now, and we have the webpage ready to go. So hopefully tomorrow or Wednesday or Thursday, maybe we don't do it on Remembrance Day, maybe wait till Friday, that we'll be in a position to get that going and give us something kind of lively and fun to discuss and get excited about during this dreaded international break. So more to come on that. Okay, my friends, that will do it for this week. As I always say, and I genuinely mean it, thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and please do share it with anybody that you have in your life that you think might enjoy it. Until next week, please do take care. All the very best, and here's to celebrating Remembrance Day and giving thanks for all the sacrifices of others to enjoy the life that we do today. Take care, folks. Cheerio.